Mara Sarah. I'm so happy you're here. You're listening to the My Felt Story podcast, your place for Torah stories. From Avraham Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu, we learn how to love and serve Hashem and how to be kind to our fellow friends. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. This is the story of Rabbi Akiva and Rochel. It was after the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. The Jewish people were devastated. Their beautiful Beis HaMikdash was gone. They didn't have a mizbeach to bring up karbonos or a menorah to light. The kohanim were taken away by the Romans, and all that was left was a pile of broken stones. How could they serve Hashem? They felt lost and alone. In Yerushalayim, there was a very wealthy man named Kalba Savua. He lived in a big mansion. He had a daughter, Rochel. She was very kind and very beautiful. Rochel's heart ached about the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. She missed its warmth and beauty. Now that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the Jewish people were in Golus. But even though the Beis HaMikdash was burned down, Rochel knew that the Jewish people still had their most precious gift, the Torah. Rochel could have married a wealthy young man and moved away to enjoy a life of luxuries. She could have forgotten all about the problems of the Jewish people and instead gone on vacations, bought expensive clothing, and enjoyed fine food. But the thing that was most precious to Rochel's heart was Hashem and His Torah. She cared so much about her people, and her only concern was the future of her nation. Kalba Savua was looking for someone to supervise all of his shepherds. He needed someone to take charge of his flocks of sheep and manage his whole estate. He needed someone he could trust. Several people had been suggested, but none of them seemed trustworthy enough. Then one day, a young man showed up who was recommended by his neighbor. Kalba Savua invited him in. "My neighbor says you are loyal, hardworking, and honest. What is your name?" "My name is Akiva. My father's name is Yosef. My parents were killed during the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, so now I must work by offering my services to others." "How much would you like me to pay you for your work?" asked Kalba Savua. At that moment, Rochel walked in, and Akiva thought to himself, if only I could answer like Yaakov Avinu, who said, "I will work for you for 7 years to marry your daughter Rochel." Rochel saw Akiva and wondered who the stranger was, but she didn't ask. She turned to her father and told him a guest had come to visit. "Please show him to his room and make sure he has all the things he needs to be comfortable," said Kalba Savua. Rochel nodded and left the room. After speaking to Akiva, Kalba Savua saw that he was an honest person and he could trust him with his entire house. And so, Akiva started working for Kalba Savua. He managed all the shepherds, made sure they came to work on time, and they did a good job of caring for Kalba Savua's sheep. He sorted out things when the shepherds got into an argument and made sure there was peace. Akiva did an excellent job of taking care of Kalba Savua's affairs. During that time, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the great Torah scholar who lived in Yavne, passed away. Everyone was devastated about this because the beautiful Beis HaMikdash had been burned by the Romans, and now their most beloved and holy teacher had passed away. The Jewish people were feeling even more sad and lost. How would they continue on without a good leader to show them the way? Rochel loved Hashem. She loved the Torah and the Jewish people. She saw the situation and felt so sad about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's passing. She thought, the Jewish people need a strong leader, someone to teach them Torah and guide them through this difficult time. We don't have a Beis HaMikdash now. We need to stay connected to Hashem through learning His Torah. Who could it be? Who could be a good teacher for the Jewish people? Rochel watched how Akiva took care of her father's house. She saw how kind he was to the shepherds and how clever he was in business. If only Akiva would devote himself to Torah, he would become a light for the Jewish people. Rochel decided to talk to Akiva. She went outside to where Akiva was watching the sheep get sheared. The shearer was using a hand shear to trim the sheep's thick, woolly coat. His hand worked quickly as he snipped the thick wool coat, which fell to the ground in a heap. "Good day, daughter of my master," said Akiva. "Would you like to watch the shearing of the sheep?" "I have come to speak with you, not see the sheep. Our greatest teacher has passed away. Everyone is mourning. Only you don't seem to care about it." Akiva didn't understand why everyone was so sad about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's passing. He didn't understand what was so good about learning Torah. He thought the Torah scholars were arrogant because they thought they were better than everyone else. He thought working in the world and making money was much more important than learning Torah. Akiva said, "Yeah, why would I be upset about that? I don't care about learning Torah." Rochel understood that Akiva did not see the preciousness of learning Torah. She said, "You speak like that only because you don't know Hashem's teachings. You never learned Torah. Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, who wrote it down and passed it along with the Torah Shebaal Peh. It is wisdom from Hashem that keeps us close to Him and shows us how to live a good and holy life. When I was young, I would hear great rabbis talking about how worried they were about losing the Torah Shebaal Peh and thinking of ways to keep it connected so it won't get lost. Oh, Akiva, if only you would take this task upon yourself, you would bring joy to your people for eternity." "You surely think too highly of me," answered Akiva. "How could I possibly begin to learn now when I haven't learned any Torah before?" "You can do whatever you want to do," said Rochel. "I have seen how you do things. You are hardworking, your perseverance is unlimited, and your mind is brilliant. All you have to do is want to, and then Hashem will help you do what seems impossible." "If I were to decide to study, I would have to dedicate my entire life to it. How would I support myself?" asked Akiva. "You would know that you are making a great contribution to our people. You would get honor in this world and eternal bliss in the next." "Even so," Akiva smiled, "with all these beautiful things, one can still go hungry. I don't know how I could support myself." Although it seemed that Akiva didn't accept Rochel's words, her words penetrated his heart and his mind. In the days that followed, his regular work and activities, which usually felt so important to him, started to feel less important. He kept working as usual, but his heart was not involved. Akiva was thinking about Rochel's words and how he could help the Jewish people and learn Torah. Akiva started to put aside time to daven with more concentration and passion. He began to do the mitzvahs more carefully than before. He started to have questions that he didn't know the answer to, and felt a great yearning to learn more Torah. Behind Kabel Savua's home, there was a large garden with streams that flowed into the Kinneret Lake. One summer morning, Rochel decided to take a walk through the garden. She was feeling stressed and upset since her conversation with Akiva. The gentle sound of the streams and the beautiful views helped her feel at ease. She wandered along the stream, higher and higher, up the hill, until she reached her favorite bench under the olive trees. She sat and watched the water splash against the rocks, until she suddenly saw Akiva standing nearby. "I'm sorry to disturb you," said Akiva, "but I must tell you that since we have spoken, I have been thinking about what you said, and I have many questions that I cannot answer. I was hoping you could help me." Rochel listened. Akiva shared his questions, and Rochel responded with clarity and brilliance. Akiva was blown away. "Wow, your words are so wise. It sounds like Hashem is speaking through you. If only I could find a wife like you, who would stand by my side I would happily spend all my time learning Torah. If I knew that one day you would become a great teacher of the Jewish people, Rochel said, I would not turn you down. But I may not be able to fulfill this condition, said Akiva. If you say that you will devote your entire life to Torah, even if you don't become a great teacher, I would agree to marry you. Speak to my father about this. Rochel stood up and walked down the path towards the house. Akiva was stunned. He had never experienced such joy. Rochel would agree to marry him? The brilliant, devoted, wonderful daughter of his master was coming down to him, a poor shepherd? Even in his wildest dreams he could never have imagined this. But how will I get Kalba Savua to allow it? He wants his daughter to marry a Torah scholar, and I am a poor, ignorant servant. Hashem, help me with this, and I promise to devote my whole life to studying your Torah and serving you. A few days later came Rabbi Akiva's chance. Akiva, Kalba Savua approached him, you still haven't told me how you would like to get paid. Thank you, my master. When you originally asked me, your daughter walked in, and I wanted to respond like Yaakov Avinu. I will work for 7 years to marry your daughter Rochel. I would like to change my request. Please release me from my duties, so I can go and study Torah. Your daughter has promised to marry me on the condition that I begin to learn. Kalba Savua was astonished. Have you lost your mind, Akiva? I know this sounds crazy, but I wouldn't have dared approach you if your daughter had not asked me. Kalba Savua's face flushed with anger. He called a servant to bring in Rochel at once. You called me, father? Rochel took her father's hand and kissed it. Rochel, why do you want to marry this man who doesn't know any Torah? I know you've always wanted to marry a Torah scholar. Yes, father. I see Akiva is unusually gifted, and I believe if he uses his smart mind and with his special soul, he can become one of the greatest teachers of the Jewish people. Don't be silly, Rochel. It's not possible, said Kalba Savua. Father, I am willing to risk everything for this. There is nothing more precious to me than the Torah. It doesn't sound like you're making a good decision, my daughter. Let's go to Yavna and choose a husband for you from one of the great students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, said her father. But I have already given my word to Akiva. I will never marry anyone else. Kalba Savua knew Rochel was telling the truth. He was very angry. He said, If you don't comply with my request, I no longer consider you my daughter. You will not receive anything from my possessions. You are not to take anything from this house except the clothing you are wearing. Father, Rochel said in a voice filled with pain, Hashem is my witness that it hurts me deeply to have angered you so. Your riches I can part with, but I will miss your fatherly love. With tears streaming down her face, Rochel left her father's house empty-handed, not a penny to her name. Even though her hands were empty, her heart was full of love for Hashem, for her people and the Torah. She walked with strength and courage alongside Akiva, her new husband, with whom she shared her vision with. Rochel went to the marketplace and sold the clothes and fine jewelry she was wearing, and bought a small hut and a few household items and tools. She spent her days spinning wool to make enough money to buy food so her husband could go and learn. Akiva went to the teacher in the town named Nachum of Gimzo. First he learned the Aleph Beis, and after that he learned the Nekudos. It did not take Akiva a long time to learn how to read. Once Akiva started reading the words of Torah, he had many questions, and Reb Nachum encouraged him to ask. He told him, An embarrassed person doesn't learn anything. Akiva was so curious. He loved asking questions to his teacher, Nachum of Gimzo. His heart expanded with joy as he drank the words of Torah. Akiva and Rochel didn't have enough money to buy beds, so they slept on straw. Every morning, Rochel would remove the straw that got stuck in her hair. Akiva would feel sad watching the daughter of Kalba Savua, the wealthiest man in Yerushalayim, now live in poverty, waking up with straw in her hair. Akiva said to her, You have made great sacrifices for me to learn. I am such a fortunate man to have a wife like you. Rochel, one day, if Hashem blesses me with lots of money, I will adorn you like a princess. I will make you a gold crown with the city of Yerushalayim on it." Rochel smiled. She didn't mind the straw. Akiva loved learning from all types of people. When he met a doctor, he would ask him to teach him something about medicine. When he met a mathematician, he would ask him to teach him about math. When he met an astronomer, he would ask him about the stars. Akiva knew that all the knowledge would help him understand the Torah. After his teacher, Rabbi Nachum, passed away, Akiva went to Yavne, where all the great Torah scholars learned. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. Akiva was afraid to speak up next to these great scholars. He didn't grow up as a Torah scholar and didn't know all the things they knew and the ways to behave. It was hard for Rabbi Akiva to keep up, but his thirst for Torah was so great, he persevered. One day, Akiva was walking by the opening of a well. He looked at the large stone and wondered how it had been carved. He asked his friends, "Who carved out this stone?" They told him that the water that dripped on it every day wore away at the stone and made the hole. Akiva thought to himself, if water can wear away at hard stone, how much more so can Torah, which is hard like iron, carve away into my heart, which is flesh and blood. Akiva decided he would not give up. He continued to learn from his teachers and use his brain to understand the words of Torah. Finally, after 12 years of learning, Akiva felt confident to share his opinion in front of his teachers. When the teachers and students heard what Akiva said, they saw he was right. From then on, they respected his opinion. Whenever there was a question about translation or math or astronomy or biology, they would ask Akiva. It didn't take long for the rabbis to finally recognize that their student Akiva was a great rabbi himself. Many of the younger boys, eager to learn, began to crowd around him. He wasn't Akiva anymore. Now he was Rabbi Akiva, a great scholar and teacher. He taught his students to love one another and to respect each other. Rabbi Akiva taught his students about Hashem's kindness and goodness. He explained to them the deepest secrets of Hashem. He also taught his students never to give up, for when one commits to something with Hashem's help, they can persevere and succeed. For 12 long years, Rabbi Akiva had not seen his wife and children. Only once during that time he had come to the village to visit. As he stood at the entrance of his hut, he heard the neighbor talking to Rochel. "Why are you waiting for Akiva to come back? He probably forgot about you." Rochel said, "Do not speak negatively about my husband being away for so long. I encourage him to go. If he becomes a great teacher of the Jewish people, I would accept his absence for even longer." Rabbi Akiva heard the words of Rochel, and he immediately returned back to Yavne to continue learning. Now, finally, after all these years, it was time for Rabbi Akiva to come home. Thousands of his disciples accompanied him. People streamed from all directions to see the famous Torah scholar who was journeying with crowds of his students following him. Rochel heard about her husband's return, and her heart was filled with both excitement and trepidation. She opened the door to her hut, with her heart pounding. She walked to the main street to the village center, and then she saw him, surrounded by students. His face was glowing. Her beloved Akiva, now a Torah scholar. Rochel's heart was filled with joy. Tears of happiness rolled down her cheeks. She wiped her tears and walked towards her husband. But when the students saw her, they blocked her from getting through. Rochel's clothes were tattered and ripped. She looked like a beggar. But Rabbi Akiva had seen her. "Rochel!" he exclaimed with joy. "My beloved wife, Rochel! Let her through." His students quickly listened to their teacher and made space for her to stand next to her husband. Akiva looked at all of his students with joy and said, "If not for Rochel, I would have remained an ignorant shepherd. All my Torah and all your Torah is hers." Rochel's heart was filled with joy and pride. Her face was beaming. Her dream had come true. All her Mesiras Nefesh had paid off. Her husband was a great teacher and Torah scholar, teaching thousands of students. She looked into Akiva's eyes, and he looked into hers with appreciation and gratitude. They smiled at each other. Later that day, Kaba Savua came to the great Rabbi Akiva. He wanted to speak to a wise Torah scholar about a question he had. He was getting old, and he wanted to donate all his things to tzedakah. "Where would be the best place to donate my things to?" he asked Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva looked at his old boss, but Kaba Savua did not recognize him. "Do you have any children?" Rabbi Akiva asked. "I have one daughter, but she married a poor, ignorant shepherd against my will, and I promised to disown her," said Kaba Savua sadly. "And what if the poor shepherd had become a Torah scholar like me? If you would have known, would you still have made that promise?" "Of course not. How fortunate I would feel if my daughter had chosen someone like you," exclaimed Kaba Savua. "My dear father, I am Akiva ben Yosef," Akiva cried out. "I was the shepherd who served you, and your daughter Rochel is my beloved wife." Kaba Savua could not believe his eyes. He looked at Rabbi Akiva in surprise as tears began to pour down his cheeks. Rochel was right, he thought. She saw what Akiva could become and made a big sacrifice. Kaba Savua was quiet for a few moments. He looked at Rabbi Akiva and asked, "Can you forgive me?" "There is nothing to forgive you for," said Rabbi Akiva. "What you did makes sense. But now I will nullify your promise and make it as if it never existed. If you had been able to foresee the future, you would have never said it." "Thank you! May Hashem bless you," said Kaba Savua happily. "Come and move into my house with me. I will give you half my wealth now, and the rest will become yours after I pass away." Rabbi Akiva called Rochel. When she entered the room and saw her father, she fell to the floor and embraced his knees. Kaba Savua lifted her up and hugged and kissed her. "My daughter, you were able to foresee the future better than I was. Forgive me for having caused you so much anguish and pain all these years." "Oh no, my father. How could I have suffered at all when I am married to the wisest and most noble man on the earth? How could I have been unhappy when my children too are following in his footsteps, and one day they will become the pride and joy of the Jewish people as well? I am the luckiest a woman could ever be. All I was missing, of course, was your fatherly love, and now you are here. My happiness is complete. May Hashem bless you, my daughter. Now I have grandchildren to surround me, and I won't be lonely in my old age. Please bring them into my house so we can spend time together." It was a glorious sight to behold when Akiva moved into his father-in-law's house with his wife and children, while his students all looked on. Rabbi Akiva was now a wealthy man. The first thing he did was buy a beautiful golden crown with a picture of Yerushalayim engraved on it. He gave it to his beloved Rochel, just like he had promised it to her when they were very poor. Rochel wore the crown with great joy. She was happy to be back with her father, surrounded by the beautiful meadows and streams. But what made her even more happy was that her husband had succeeded in becoming a great Torah scholar. She had certainty that the future of the Jewish people would be strong, and was grateful that with Hashem's help, she was able to do her part to make that happen. And that's it for today, friends. I hope you enjoyed the story. Do you want to learn the Aleph Beis and read Torah like Rabbi Akiva? I'm almost finished an Aleph Beis and Nekudos Felt set. Go to myfeltstory.com to sign up and know when it's ready. Sending you lots of love until next time.